UCF flopped hard on the road versus the Baylor Bears. What went wrong for the Knights?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. Turn us on, turn us up, we'll turn it out. The UCF offense did not turn out. We're going to talk about why the offense struggled today on the road. Then we're going to talk about UCF and their third down woes that really killed them today. Then what's next for UCF? Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda, move and be moved. I wish, James, that the UCF offensive line would have moved some people out of the way today. They did not. It was tough. We've got the stats up here. We found the clock just hit triple zeros, a mere 225 yards of offense. Baylor 417 yards of offense, which is not bad, but not amazing. I think the story of the game, 1 of 11 on third downs for UCF, 0 of 3 on fourth downs. Could not sustain drives today. Lost time of possession, 33 minutes to 26 minutes. Offense could not find the end zone. The big plays weren't there down the field. I really just think this was a case of the offense just not really executing. I don't think the Baylor defense did anything particularly well. They got out to a fast start. Credit to them. We knew that was a possibility with Sawyer Robertson. He was 29 of 40 for 267 and 3 TDs. That's 73%. So he did what Sawyer Robertson usually does. Honestly, that's not like one of his better games. I mean, he's thrown for over 400 yards multiple times this season. Talk to me, man. Why you think the offense struggled so hard today?
Yeah, honestly, Mike, your defense held Baylor under their average points per game. So in reality, your offense needed to step up there. But I think I'm going to blame this on both phases. One of the things that we talked about in our pregame show was there were 2 ways that UCF would lose this game. And that's if they went gunslinger for gunslinger and tried to air out the ball, which they did too many times. Between Jaden Nixon and Myles, you had 15 carries between the two of them. That is just simply not enough. You couldn't get any push. You can't get a single yard on a third and fourth down. Jaden Nixon had like 3 or 4 carries on the day. It's odd to me because it seems like in the West Virginia game, you have the ability to get the ball to your playmakers. In this game, you didn't. In this game, it was Dwayne Thomas or bust. And, Speedy had his first drop of the year on a crucial third and 7 to start the game on your first drive. There was a couple of non-PI calls or whatever you want to call it, but this game, like, it was awful in all 3 phases. Noe Rulas with a halfway decent kick before the half. Then he just completely missed a 53-yarder, which is like, you don't want your kicker kicking a 53-yarder anyway, but he completely missed it. It was short and left. Your punter had multiple shanked punts. I mean, it seriously couldn't. It seemed like they couldn't get anything going. I mean, I don't remember when the last time it was that the UCF Knights didn't get in the end zone a single time during the game.
Yeah, look, just for everybody listening right now, we see the comments pouring in. We're going to get to your comments in the second segment of our show. But yeah, I agree with you. Look, there were some things that we pointed out all week for the Baylor offense that we thought were necessary. Michael Trigg looked very Michael Triggish. Oh my goodness. He is a monster. He is an absolute monster. He showed up. He caught all 5 targets he had today for 82 yards and a touchdown. They utilized their weapons well enough in this one, got out to a quick start. Now, one of the things that you and I have repeatedly pointed out about this team is getting out in front early, super important. Baylor won the toss and chose to receive. Which, a little bit of a change up. A lot of teams defer to the second half. They chose to receive because they felt like, look, we want the ball first and we want to get ahead quickly. This is not a UCF team built to come from behind. It's not. They did exactly what I did not want them to do, and it was, if the run game sputtered at first, don't abandon it. Do not. You have to lean on these guys.
Yeah, they didn't hand off the ball a single time during the first drive. I don't think. I think they were all 3 passing plays. And something to note on that first drive was that for UCF's defense was that they got themselves into 3 third and longs, 3 third and 6+ on that drive, and didn't get a single stop.
Yeah. To your point, on the first drive of the game, starting at 10 minutes and 43 seconds, Tayven Jackson passed to the right, complete to Dwayne Thomas Jr. 2nd and 8, Tayven passing deep to the left, incomplete for DJ Black. And then on 3rd and 8, short middle to Dwayne Thomas Jr., incomplete, punt.
And that was a drop from Dwayne Thomas.
Right, yeah. So you didn't attempt. You got to run the ball on first down, man. Give yourself 2nd and 3rd and manageable. Too many 3rd and too long situations today. And I didn't see the commitment to the run, man, that we've seen in previous games. This is a Baylor defense you can run on. We've said it. The second worst run defense in the league, James. You froze there. What were you saying?
Oh, sorry. I was saying that, Baylor, Knighton for Baylor, the freshman, had 21 attempts by himself, backed up by Washington with 9, Dodds with 4, and then Sawyer Robertson with 4 carries as well. Montgomery had 12, and he was averaging you 4.2 yards a carry. Nixon had 3 attempts, and he had 6 yards a carry. But Knighton, the freshman, I mean, you couldn't – this was a Baylor team with 0 running offense. They came into the game and had a single freshman runner put over 100 yards on you with 5 yards a carry. It's unexplainable what happened to this defense. And I think it's so funny to note something that Scott Frost said before this game was, you don't want to look too deep into an offense, or you can you have 2 weeks to focus on somebody, and you're seeing almost things that aren't there. It felt like they were chasing ghosts today, Mike.
It did feel like they were chasing ghosts. As I mentioned, 3rd down were awful for UCF today. Too many 3rd and long situations. We're going to talk about why that was right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked on UCF is brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda, move and be moved. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep the game moving forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Andrew Gluchov, senior writer for UCF nightzone.com, is going to join us here right after we get to some comments. Let's get to some comments here quickly. A local B2 says, Jesus, that was awful. I agree with that statement. Our guy Twizzy579 says, we really might not make a bowl game. Not ready to go there, Twizzy, but I understand the hurt and pain that you're feeling. Savvy Guy 1353 says, horrible, all 3 phases. Was not a good game, indeed. Twizzy579 comes back, says, we keep running the ball on 3rd and 1 and it doesn't work, but let's keep doing it.
And when you don't run the ball on 3rd and 1, you toss it to your right tackle. What are we doing, Mike?
What are we doing here? Stripes I5T says, done for the year, for this year. Oh, don't quit yet. Don't quit. Local B comes back, says Houston losing to West Virginia on a positive note. Okay, all right. So maybe bowl game in sight. Twizzy579 says defense couldn't get a stop for their life. That was probably the most surprising thing in this game, was they let Baylor do some things they absolutely have not been good at all year. Our guy FOC Tenor says the secondary is mid. key piece missing there in that secondary. I wish UCF could get back. Do Hippo says, looks like we played our role well today, from play calling, coaches to players to Big 12 officials, all perfect execution. Twizzy comes back and says, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He says, if Frost doesn't change this team around next season, I honestly don't think he will be our guy. Look, man, this is why recruiting is important. So I would just hold on, man, until you see how these guys recruit and develop. This is only year one. It's going to look a little mid in year one. And then alum Knight Adler says, 3rd and long, 3rd and short, doesn't matter. We can't get a yard. Surprising, again, versus this Baylor defense. Let's go ahead and bring in Andrew here to the stage. Andrew, it was a tough day offensively for UCF. They could not get anything going. Again, they lost time of possession here, 33-26. Tayven Jackson had a rough day, 1 of 11 on 3rd down, 0 of 3 on 4th down. Nothing was working for the Knights here, man. What did you see out there? We can't hear you, Andrew.
There we go. That's better. This was a rough one. I did a 5K this morning to get, try to, clear my head, but apparently someone must have spiked the Gatorade or something, because coming out the gate, this team was so flat. Defensive backs were given way too much room. They weren't turning their heads. It's like this team was in a fog for the entire first half, like both sides of the ball. And then in the second half, the defense actually did a solid job. They still missed a number of tackles, which was uncharacteristic of this defense all the way up to this point. They missed a lot of tackles. Even in the second half, when they kept Baylor relatively in check, that one touchdown, that was a 7-yard drive. While it's much like what happened against West Virginia in the last game, statistically, it's on the defense. You can't blame the defense. I mean, that's tough, to have to, work an entire drive with your back against the goal line. So I thought the defense, did a decent job in the second half, much like they've done in multiple games, Kansas State, even, some of the other games where they kind of locked down in the fourth quarter. But of course you have the offense who, couldn't fight their way out of a wet bag, and then did the roadkill mimicking third quarter where they, had a whopping 27 yards of offense. This is a recurring theme where UCF's offense just wets the bed in the third quarter. This was just a frustrating one all the way up and down the court. I think James, laughing about, throwing your backup offensive lineman in as a tight end and then try to pass him the ball. No, what are you thinking? Like, the play calling was just absolutely atrocious. 3rd and 1. Hey, let's do exactly everything that hasn't worked pretty much all year. Let's do it again. Maybe it'll change. I'll be I have no problem putting myself out there. I was writing for another site, and when they were doing the coaching candidates for this job, I only listed Scott Frost to say don't hire him. I still am not a huge fan. I don't think Nebraska was an aberration. I think that's the norm. I hope to be wrong, but I'm sorry. Winning against scrub teams, and West Virginia put the cheat codes in against Houston, but they're not a good team. Let's be honest. But winning against scrub teams doesn't make you a good team. You're just the scum that eats the scum. And this is not good. And okay, you had to retool your team, 70 new players, but you have to also work with the talent that you have. And, obviously there's a lot of things that aren't working. So instead of doing the same things over and over again, you would think, all right, try something different. But we're not seeing that, Mike. I don't know if you watched the same game as me, but they ran the same plays that haven't worked throughout the entire season. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And don't even get me started on that weird quarterback design run that absolutely got blown up from the moment it got snapped, to obviously not practicing direct snaps enough to running backs where they, managed to botch both of them. I don't know if you're seeing anything like innovative here, but it seems to be the same tricks over and over again, and it's just not.
They seem to do a lot of the things that we highlighted during the week that they should not do. And again, abandon the run. It's been a strength all year against a team that has been awful defending the run. I don't know, 3.2 yards per carry. As you mentioned, James, Jay Nixon with only 3 carries on the day. Myles Montgomery with only 12 carries on the day. Your 2 running backs, less than 20 carries. There were some jet sweeps there to Dwayne Thomas Jr. And then, Tayven Jackson had a few carries, but I don't get abandoning the run. When they watch the tape after this one, I think they'll see a lot of missed opportunities. Let's get to some comments here. Our guy, a green, says, why do we make average teams look like Ohio State? Well, again, year 1 rebuild, so there are going to be some ups and downs. Thomas Bloom says, come all ye who are struggling at football. UCF will help you with your issues.
Hey, for the record, I've been around UCF for a very long time, where UCFing the game was a common description. Or snatching defeat from the jaws of victory was an art form. I mean, they just got flat out crushed this month. They went to bed.
Thomas getting in the holiday spirit here a little early, I see. There's a lot to say. I'm not even try to say that. Bears finally played a complete game. I don't know, man. I'm not giving them a lot of credit in this one. I just think UCF flopped, and that's that. It also comes back. Going to be 2 pissed teams playing in the space game. I'm worried about that one. I am a little worried about the space game. Not gonna lie.
I would have rather have had Houston win. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about the space game. Our guy FOC Tenor says, give Scott Frost a chance. He should be our guy in the next 10 years if we really want to have a shot at a Big 12 title and a playoff. Building a team takes time, and you build it through recruiting. You won't see the fruits of that for 2 or 3 years. So you can go to the portal and you can get guys, but I am still of the old school mantra that high school recruiting is the bedrock of a steadily good program. You got to recruit and develop from high school.
Yeah, Mike, and I really do like that comment, and I think it's funny, Andrew. You were mentioning beating bad teams and that kind of thing. We've got to win against Jack State, who it's Jack State, not that great. They're undefeated in conference play. They're a winning football team this year. You get a win over UNC, who just beat the brakes off of Syracuse, I believe. And you get a win over West Virginia, who just beat a ranked Houston. I don't necessarily think you're beating bad football teams. I think Gus would have probably lost you 1 or 2 of those games. So I think you're watching the culture get slightly better. I do think there was a severe effort issue today. Even watching guys that are usually really high intensity, high effort, like Cole Kozlowski, he's watching, Sawyer Robertson escape a sack. He gets outside and he sees Sawyer Robertson going on a bounce, but he's got all this green room in front of him. He just stops running. And Sawyer Robertson scampers for an extra 10 yards. It's like little plays like that. Those plays change the game just off of intensity, just off effort. If you see that the guy that you look up to who's always giving effort isn't giving effort anymore because you're down 20, that makes you not want to give effort. So I think it's a really difficult thing to watch, to have a team give up on itself. It's not that can't be because of coaching. I didn't think the play calls were all that fantastic today. I do think that, if the only thing in your bag is a tight end stick route and little drag routes from Dwayne Thomas Jr. and speed option and halfback direct snap and a little misdirection jet sweep, I think if those are your 6 plays in your offense, then I think you're doing something wrong. But man, it's difficult to watch effort go down in all 3 phases as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, I do want to point out that when you're seeing that flatness, like especially in the first drive, that's where the coaching does need to step in and you hit that reset button real quick, because they scored on their first 4 drives, and a number of those conversions were on plays where it's been noted that the defender just didn't turn his head. He didn't make any play. He was kind of just going through the motions. That's where coaching does play a role. And by the time you got to the Kozlowski run, I mean, the wheels had fallen off. I mean, I give the defense credit in the second half there were moments like that, but there were moments that they actually did stuff and made things happen. The defensive line never gave up. Malachi Lawrence had an outstanding game. He didn't give up. And I think that deserves to be called out in a game where it seemed like guys left and right were just kind of looking lost. Like that 37-yarder on fourth down that ended up getting overturned and becoming a turnover and downs. I mean, Braden Marshall looked lost, just absolutely lost at the end of that, wondering like, just what's going on. And that was kind of like the team as a whole, especially in the defensive backfield, they seemed lost. But here's the thing. Sorry, Robertson didn't do anything new. This is what they've been doing all year. So then you have to wonder, was there a failure to prepare? You have to ask that question. I think it's a legit question, because you had 2 weeks to get ready for this game, heal up and everything. And, to be complete out of your mode, just, it throws up red flags that okay, something went wrong here.
Yeah, I would definitely say coming off a bye week, this was disappointing. Our guy, Alum Knight Adler, says criminal Nixon didn't get a single touch in the first half. Again, no commitment to running the ball was shocking to me. But again, they're going to go back and look at the tape and I think see that there's some things they could have done better. Look, we're going to get to the break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's next for UCF. I got to forget this one quickly, guys, and move on. We'll talk about what moving on looks like for UCF right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. It's the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. You know who delivered for UCF? Nobody delivered. They scored 3 points. They gave up 30. But somebody will deliver moving forward, and as somebody will eventually step up, DoorDash is stepping up for you on Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you ordered, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/8/18. That's November 18th. This episode of Locked On UCF is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. America's #1 sports book. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel gives new customers, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official betting partner of the NBA. What's next for UCF? As we mentioned, the Space Game is coming up next weekend, so they'll take on Houston, who did just lose to West Virginia, as we were told by the chat. And then they've got Texas Tech after that. They're at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and BYU. They need 2 more to get to a bowl game. So you got to win the Space Game, and you got to beat Oklahoma State. Otherwise, you're faced with trying to beat a currently top 10 BYU in their house, or a Texas Tech who is top 25 in their house. The question that I have for you guys is bowl game or no for UCF at this point. I'm taking my 8-4 prediction off the table because they lost this game. But I think 6-6 still realistic. They're going to have to upset somebody, though, if they're going to get there.
I guess I'll go first on this. I think 6-6 is still realistic. Houston may have been 7-1, but they don't have a great resume. They really don't. I mean, they have wins against Oregon State, who's got a 1 win, Colorado, who's 3-5, and Oklahoma State. I mean, the best team they beat was Arizona State, who lost their starting quarterback. And he got hurt during that game. Just that kind of goes downhill. And then you have Arizona, who's not a huge difference from UCF, and that was 31-28. That was a close game. So Houston still has to play TCU. They still play UCF. They still play Baylor. And this Baylor team, don't forget, Baylor was viewed as a major contender in the title picture before the season started. They had very high expectations, and they're the ones who fell flat. Perhaps this is the real Baylor Bears team that we saw today, the one that people were expecting to compete for a conference championship. So I still think 6 wins is possible. Strange things happen at the space game. The margin of victory for UCF is astronomically high. I think it's around 30 to 32 points. It's ridiculously high. They haven't lost one yet. They throw in a 4th string quarterback with who had very little experience and threw him in there, and he looked like Tom Brady and just absolutely torched Arizona. And you saw the rest of the season, he really wasn't all that great, but he just absolutely looked perfect, throwing a Hail Mary to end the half and just couldn't do any wrong. So strange things happen in the space game. I'm not willing to write that one off. Oh, Houston's gonna beat up on UCF. I'm not ready to write that off. History, UCF and Houston have a very, very interesting history football wise. I've watched many games. UCF's first ever ranked win was against Houston in 2009. The win in 2013 went right to the wire. I mean, the win against 14 in Houston with the fumble out of the end zone. I mean, these have been some really awesome games and very underrated. So I think that one's is going to be better than people think. And then there's, of course, Oklahoma State later in the year. I think UCF still has a chance to win those 2 games. I don't think they'll win against Texas Tech or BYU on the road. So 6-6, still a possibility. But unlike what Houston had to deal with today against West Virginia, where nobody showed up to the game, fans are going to have to show up and help this team win. They need that home field advantage, or they could lose against Houston.
James, what do you think, man? 6-6 bowl game, or what's going on?
Yeah, I think if the team that showed up in Waco today, I think if they show up at the bounce house next week, I think you get your first space game loss. I really do. And I think that if you show up and you play like you did today for the rest of the season, I think you go 4-8. I think you end up like Gus.
No,
and
4-8.
And listen. You guys know I am not a pessimist. I will look you dead in the face and I will say UCF can beat Alabama if given the right opportunities. I think that if they play like that, that's what happens. But I don't think that'll happen. I've been to every space game over the past 4 to 5 years, and I've watched this team do unreal things. I think you beat Houston. I don't think that margin is going to be what you're used to in the space game. But I think you probably beat Houston just from a little citronaut magic in the air. All right. But you got to go steal a win. And I know people are looking at this Oklahoma State team and they're like, whatever. Guys, we just lost by 27 to Baylor. Okay. So we are not much bigger than this Oklahoma State team. We are not much bigger than that West Virginia team that we beat. So you have to look at your team for what it realistically is. You need to use the playmakers that you have. You need to put your players in an area where they can have success. And right now, that's just not happening with the offensive line. That's not happening with some of the play calling and putting in our left tackle at tight end and trying to make him Odell a ball in the end zone. It's just not happening for the Knights. And I want to be honest with people that watch our show, because I'm not going to get on here and if you watch that West Virginia game and you go watch that UNC game, you look at a team that is complete. You watch the Baylor game, you watch the Cincinnati game, and you look at a team that has no idea what they are doing at any given time. There were false starts. There were delay of games. There was a play where Chris Domerkant got an illegal man downfield, even though he was a wide receiver because he wasn't being covered up. There's silly mistakes like that it's every time you take one step forward, you're taking 2 steps back. You can't allow yourself to do that for the rest of the season. Something needs to be worked on. I don't know if it's that you need to think less when you're playing the game or think more when you're playing the game. It felt like sometimes they were overdoing it. Sometimes it felt like they were underdoing it. I think there needs to be less thought and more effort. And I think that you win a couple of these games. It definitely sucked not having Marcus Burke out there today. You even heard some of the announcers say, it'd be really nice if UCF had a guy that they could just kind of throw the ball up to and hope that they make a catch like Michael Trigg. And you missed that guy today with Marcus Burke, your big 6'4" target from Florida. You would have really liked to have had a guy like that being down 20 a majority of the game. So I think UCF was missing a lot of pieces. I had to endure some cold rain games last year where I watched our team get battered, and it was not fun. If you put fans through hell, you better make sure that you at least win the game. And that's what I need to see on the Space game, and that's what I need to see from the Oklahoma State game as well.
The Jekyll and Hyde that is UCF football.
Now, Mike, there is a question here. Is this a mental issue with the home versus the road? Because James made a very astute observation talking about North Carolina and West Virginia versus Cincinnati and Baylor. The one big thing is you're talking home versus road. It's like a totally different team when they play at home versus on the road. This is not a new problem for UCF.
Yeah, I would say UCF on the road. Again, getting your team up to go on the road and play, definitely difficult at times. It's not exactly a short trip for UCF either for a noon kickoff. I hate noon kickoffs, guys. I absolutely despise noon kickoffs, and I don't want to be the time of day. I know you shouldn't matter, but every team I've ever covered, noon kickoffs, no bueno.
And it was 11 o'clock there.
Yeah, especially when it's on the road. I hate that they put this game in that time slot. It is what it is, though. Look, if you're Scott Frost, you got to find a way to get your team up for this game. And they didn't show up in a lot of aspects of the game here. That they have been doing well at times this year. And to me, like James said, I think that's a focus and a mental thing that they're going to have to fix through culture. And look, man, games, to me, I'm old school, man. Games are won in the weight room. They are in the off season when you are put. I had a former director of football operations at a Division I program tell me, he said it's 1,000 hours of work in the off season for 40 hours of football in season. 1,000 hours of work, guys, and during that 1,000 hours, you are developing a winning mentality by doing shit way harder than what you're going to face in the game, so that you can make it through a game, and so that when the rubber hits the road. And things get tough, you don't back down because you've been through this in practice 100 times. He's got to fix this through culture. When you get your butt kicked on the road like this, it is a culture issue that it was left over to this coach. We'll see if he's the right guy to do it. Let's get to some comments before we get out of here. FOC Tenor says the Space game will be empty. Come on, man.
I hope
empty?
not.
Come on, I don't know about empty.
I love that game.
Alum Knight Adler says, dang, Gluchov out on Frost already.
I'll be honest, I never was really in on him. And in fact, if you want, I will post the link to the article that actually that actually had me say, no, I don't want Scott Frost. And in fact, I was ridiculed by another show over that.
Well, he
wasn't on this network, but I was ridiculed by another UCF program because I was never a fan of the Scott Frost hire.
I can tell you, I've been in this situation before. Once he's in, I'm rooting for him. That's all I can say.
Well, you want him to do well, but it's not that I wanted him. The bigger question is, why did everyone else say no? Scott Frost was not the first option. Yeah. He was not the second option. He was the consolation prize.
Thomas Bloom says our best play today was short pass to the sideline and let Baylor tackle us late for a 15-yard penalty. They had a lot of late hit, unsportsmanlike and late hits. It was surprisingly undisciplined by them. I don't even know what to say about this one. 3rd and 1, we've got to go Myles up the middle, right, guys? FOC Tenor says Frost proved he can recruit Florida. Give him a shot. Again, they're going to have to win this through recruiting. I can't stress enough, so I agree with this comment. Kozlowski stepped it up today, says FOC Tenor. A guy, a green, says at least there won't be rain Friday. Band uniforms do not feel good in the rain, especially when you're losing. I agree with that.
I will second that because that's happened to me before. Not fun.
This was in response to James's monologue. He says he's being honest though and real about their chances versus Houston. And then Savannah fan said that sucked a mighty sucking. Well said there, Savannah fan. Look, at the end of the day, this one sucks, but you got to put it in the rear view here. And we will talk in 7 days about the space game, a game that UCF has never lost. Could they lose it for the first time? I certainly hope not, but either way, we'll be here. James Duncan, UCF sports commentator, Andrew Gluchov, senior writer, UCFnightzone.com. I want to thank you guys for joining us on today's post-game show. Guys, hit the comments. Let us know how you feel about this one. I know it was disappointing. What did you guys see? Do you guys think UCF has a chance to make a bowl game at 6-6? We'll talk about that all next week. Next on Locked On UCF.